Hello everyone and welcome to Study IQ English. I am Joycey Joy and today we are going to start the chapter-wise discussion of economic survey. So the first chapter is State of the Economy. We will be doing a chapter-wise analysis. Each chapter will be split into important topics, like maybe I'll do 2 to 3 videos for each chapter. So each chapter will be divided accordingly and the videos will be made. So this is going to be a very comprehensive analysis. Any student or anybody who is preparing for a competitive examination wants to study from the economic survey, or if you want to know what are the details of the economic survey, what is the content of the survey, what are the topics covered, you can just refer to my videos. So that will help you in your preparation. It will be very comprehensive and we will have a very in-depth analysis which will be chapter wise. So coming to the first chapter, that is the state of the economy. This is the first chapter of Economic Survey 2021-22. There are 10 chapters. So 10 chapters are there in the 2021-22 survey. We will be covering all the 10 chapters starting with the state of the economy. In the second chapter is fiscal developments of the country. Then third we have external sector. Fourth one is money management or monetary management. Then we have prices and inflation. Then next is sustainable development and climate change. Then we have agriculture and food management, industry and infrastructure, services, and the last chapter is the social infrastructure and employment. So these are the chapters. So first chapter, state of economy. Let us get started. So before the actual chapter begins, there is an overview given in the survey regarding the economy. First, we will understand what is the overview. The overview gives an overall picture about the economy and the economic performance based on certain macroeconomic indicators. So based on these indicators, an overview of the economy is made. Let us see. First one is expected real GDP expansion. What is real GDP? Real GDP, first we have to understand what is GDP. GDP is gross domestic product of an economy. The gross domestic product of an economy refers to the output produced in the economy in that particular year. That is the money value of all the final goods and services produced in that economy for that financial year. That is the total output produced in the economy for that financial year. Now, what is meant by expansion? Expansion here refers to growth. Now, how is growth calculated? So, expansion here means growth. How is growth calculated? Growth is actually calculated based on a comparison with the previous year. So, here real GDP expansion means the growth in GDP as compared to the previous year. It is expected to be 9.2% for the year, that is 2021-22 financial year according to the survey. Now, what is a real GDP? You need to understand what is the difference between real GDP and nominal GDP. Real GDP is the GDP which is calculated after adjusting for the price changes, that is inflation. Whereas nominal GDP is the GDP that is calculated without making changes for inflation or without making adjustments for the price changes. So, real GDP expansion means real GDP growth as compared to the previous year, 2020-21 financial year. It is expected that in 2021-22 financial year, the growth of Indian economy would be 9.2%. Secondly, the economic survey observes that the economic activity recovered past the pre-pandemic level. That is economic activity. What is an economic activity? There are various definitions given for economic activity, but the widely accepted definition for an economic activity is any activity taking place which involves money transactions or monetary transactions. Any transactions involving money or monetary transactions is compared to be an economic activity. So, economic activities can be different, and in India we have 3 sectors: primary sector, industrial sector or the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector or the services sector. And within the sectors there are subsectors under which the economic activities take place. Now, according to the survey, the overall economic activity has recovered past the pre-pandemic level. That is, during the pandemic, during the COVID-19 pandemic, all the major economic activities in the economy had undergone a steep fall. And survey observes that as compared to that, the performance of economy based on various economic activities have improved, or it has recovered from the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, if you look at different sectors, as I said, there are three different sectors in the economy: agricultural sector or the primary sector, industrial sector or the secondary sector. Also, we have the tertiary sector or the services sector. Now, if you look into the different sectors closely, you will see that the agricultural sector was the least affected. That means agricultural sector was the least affected due to the pandemic. What would be the reason for that? It's because agriculture produces food commodities which are considered to be very necessary, or which are necessary commodities for existence or for food security of a country. So, agricultural sector, even though there was a pandemic and after effects, the production needed to be continued, or it was least disturbed, or it was minimum disturbed because of its nature, like it's an essential commodity. So, agricultural sector was the least affected, whereas services sector was the hardest hit. Now, if you look into the services sector, it contributes more than 50% to India's GVA, gross value added. And services sector has grown exponentially after the 1991 reforms as well. The services sector got the most affected due to the pandemic. We will come to a closer analysis of that. We will be analyzing that in detail for sure. I am just giving you an overview based on the survey's overview. The total consumption has grown by 7% according to the survey. This also we will take separately. We will see what were the demand side bottlenecks and what are the supply side bottlenecks and what were the push factors. Then, balance of payment remained in surplus. What is balance of payment? Balance of payment is the difference between the transactions of India with the rest of the world and from the rest of the world towards India. We can say that it is the difference of transactions, or difference of value of transactions. Difference in the value of transactions that India makes with the rest of the world in terms of incoming transactions and the outgoing transactions. So, balance of payment remained in the surplus, which means that there is more money coming into the country from foreign sources than what is going out in the balance of payment. The consumer price index 5.6% on a year-on-year basis. CPI measures the inflation at the retail level. It measures retail inflation. Inflation at the consumer's level or at the retail level. Then we will be discussing about barbell strategy and agile approach later as we proceed with this chapter. And we will also see the supply side reform separately. We will see that in very detail. So this is the overview of this chapter given by the survey. Now let's come to the sectoral trends. How different sectors are showing different trends. Now first one is agricultural sector. As we said, the primary sector. Agricultural sector or the primary sector. The agricultural sector or the primary sector is the least affected due to the pandemic. Why? Because the production or the GVA of agricultural sector towards the total GVA has not reduced much. We will see that. Coming to the industrial sector, as we said, it contracted by 7%. Industrial sector and the services sector showed a contraction in the growth. That is, the growth was negative. Sorry. The growth was negative. And later in 2021-22 financial year, it expanded to 11.8%. So this is actually a comparison between the 2020-21 financial year and 21-22 financial year. It was in the financial year 2020-21 that the pandemic hit the economy very badly. And later, the next financial year, that is 21-22 financial year, the economy recovered from the pandemic and its after effects. So, that's why it said that even though the industrial sector contracted, it again revived its growth in 21-22 financial year. Coming to services sector, as we already said, it was the worst affected, most impacted sector, especially the contact sensitive services. Now, contact sensitive services. What is meant by contact sensitive services? Services wherein people to people contact can happen. Like for example, travel, tourism, hotels. All these are people to people contact is high in all these service subsectors. So wherever there is a people to people contact, we see that the contraction in the growth was very high. Now, before we move into the demand trends, let us analyze the impact of COVID on Indian economy in some detail. So, as we said, the COVID-19, the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, the global recovery of from the pandemic, it's still in the stage of recovery, and it's uncertain as well due to several reasons. Still, the recovery is not complete in many places of the world. The global economy is still recovering. One reason is that the mutant variations of the pandemic or the virus appears again and again, like the Omicron virus. The mutant variations are appearing. Secondly, there were large supply chain disruptions which could not be revived in a very short period of time. Then, third one is inflation caused due to the pandemic. So, all these factors have necessitated the fact that the recovery is not easy. All these factors put together has not made the recovery for many of the economies in the world easy. Now, when we come to the growth of Indian economy after the post-COVID phase, we see that we have experienced a V-shaped economic recovery. Now, what is a V-shaped economic recovery? In a V-shaped economic recovery, the economy undergoes a very steep fall in the initial phase. That is the first stage. In the first stage, the economy undergoes a very steep fall. And after the fall, the revival of the economy or the recovery of the economy is also very fast, quick, sudden, and also it is sustained. So there is a quick revival of the economy from the steep fall. That is a V-shaped economic recovery. According to the survey, Indian economy has undergone a V-shaped economic recovery. That means even though we had experienced a very steep fall after the pandemic, the recovery was very strong and also sustained and very quick, according to the survey. And survey identifies several reasons for that. First one is government intervention in the shape of fiscal policies like the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Second one, the large pace of vaccination coverage that Indian government provided to its citizens. So all these are considered to be factors. And survey also now makes a analysis about the first and the second waves of COVID-19. First wave and the second wave. According to the economic survey, the first wave of COVID-19 was very much unexpected, so the economy was not prepared to face that. But in the second phase, the economy was much more prepared. So the economic impact of the second wave of COVID-19 was minimal or very less as compared to first phase. So in the first wave, the economic distraction that the COVID-19 caused was very high, whereas in the second wave, the economic impact caused was less. And according to the survey, coming to health perspective, that is, from the health perspective, the second wave was even more dangerous, whereas the economic impact was less in the second wave. And as we already said in the overview, the survey expects that in 2021-22, that is the ongoing financial year, the economy will record a growth rate of 9.2%, which means that the level of real economic output will surpass the pre-COVID levels. Before the phase of COVID, the growth rate, if we compare it with the assessment that the survey makes for this financial year 2021-22, according to survey, 9.2% will be the growth rate, and this is going to surpass the pre-pandemic growth levels. Now looking into the closer view of sectoral trends, as we said, agricultural sector was the least impacted. And if you look at the sectoral contribution of agricultural sector into the GDP or the GV of the country, it was 18.8% of the GVA. So according to the survey, the contribution of agricultural sector, the agricultural sector contribution to the GVA is 18.8%, which is a increase. Okay, so which is considered to be an improvement, or which is considered to be an increase. Now, again, the survey makes an analysis of the agricultural seasons, that is the Kharif season and the Rabi seasons. These are the two important seasons. Apart from Zaid is not considered to be a very important agricultural season. The major ones are the Kharif season and the Rabi season. Now, a little bit about the Rabi season and the Kharif season. Rabi season, the sowing is from the month of October to December, whereas the harvest is from April to June. And the major crops that are cultivated in Rabi season, they are wheat, barley, peas, gram, mustard, etc. All these are very important facts for your prelims examination. Even though all these details are not given in the survey, I am explaining it because this might be helpful for you in the prelims examination. These are all connected topics. Okay. So these are the major crops that are cultivated, and the major states that produce the Rabi crops, they are Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand and UP. So you will see that almost the north and some of the northwestern states like Punjab, Haryana, then coming to north like Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, then UP. All these states produce the major Rabi crops like the wheat, barley, gram, mustard, etc. Second major cropping season is the Kharif season, which starts from June to July. That is the sowing season. So again, the harvest season is from September to October. Kharif crops are rain-fed crops. That is why you see that the sowing is during the monsoon. Monsoon from June, July. So during June, July, India receives the monsoon rainfall. That is a season where the sowing in Kharif crops takes place and harvest during September to October. And major crops produced. Definitely these crops are rain-fed. Therefore, they are water-intensive crops for sure. And this was a previous year question asked by UPSC. Major crops include cotton, jute, then rice or paddy, maize, jowar, bajra, tur, moong, etc. These are some of the Kharif crops. And the states that produce Kharif crops, they include Assam, West Bengal, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Maharashtra. If you see the states, you will also see that these are the states that receive the monsoon rainfall. Especially the Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, then Andhra Pradesh, Telangana and the Maharashtra belt. So the Western Ghats belt, especially Kerala, Maharashtra, Karnataka, etc. they receive the maximum rainfall during the monsoon. So these are the states that receive the maximum rainfall, and therefore they grow the rain-fed crops or the crops that require more water. You can connect it that way. That's how you can relate the facts and then learn it for UPSC or any other competitive examination. So that is Kharif season, and then we have the Zaid season. As we said, Zaid is not a very important cropping season. It's actually a transit period between the Rabi and the Kharif. So it's a season between Rabi and Kharif, usually from March to July, where no other major agricultural activities take place. And Zaid season is popular in North India and also in the northwestern India. And the crops that are cultivated are mostly fruits and vegetables. Okay. So these are some of the cropping seasons and some of the crops related. Now, coming back to agricultural sector, we will here see that the net area sown in Kharif and Rabi crops have increased. That is net sowing area. Sowing area means where the cultivation, actual cultivation takes place. So net sowing area has increased for both Kharif and Rabi crops. And the major staple crops of India, wheat and rice, they have also shown an increase. So wheat and rice has also steadily increased over the years. Then another fact that the survey points out is regarding the procurement of food grains. Regarding procurement of food grains under the central pool, survey finds that there is an increasing trend along with the minimum support price. So how does the government procure the crops from the farmers? It is either through MSP, minimum support price, or through procurement price. So survey finds out that the procurement to the central pool has also increased in minimum support price. That is, by giving minimum support price, the government has procured more food crops or food commodities. That is another point it brings out, and this has impacted the farmers and the consumers in two ways. One is that it has improved the national food security. Survey says that because of this increased production and increased procurement, the national food security has become more strong. So that is one thing. Second one is that the farmers' income has also risen. Even though production is high, they are not affected by the prices. The government has procured them in minimum support price. So farmers' income has become more stable, or there is more income security for the farmers on one end, and for the consumers there is food security because the excess of production has been procured by the government through minimum support price scheme. Then there are several factors identified by the survey which relates to the strong performance of the agricultural sector. So according to the survey, for the growth of agricultural sector or for the strong performance of the agricultural sector, there are certain factors. First one is government policies in support of farmers. Several government policies to support farmers. Second one, timely availability of seeds and fertilizers. Seeds and fertilizers are the agricultural inputs. Timely availability of seeds and fertilizers. Even though there were pandemic related disruptions, the government has ensured that the timely availability of inputs will be done. And third factor, even though that's a natural factor that is very important for India, that is good monsoons. So good monsoons were also a blessing for India's agricultural sector. And the evidence to prove that there were good monsoons in India is that the reservoir levels have been higher than 10-year average. So reservoir levels were high, which means that India received a very good monsoon last year, in the last financial year. So all these factors put together, the conclusion is that in the agricultural sector, the production was high, the output was high, the net sown area increased, and the output in real terms were also high. And the growth was 18.8%, or the GVA, not exactly growth, the GVA contribution, gross value added contribution of agricultural sector remained 18.8% according to the survey. So this is about the agricultural sector. Now we have two more sectors, that is industrial sector and services sector. Sectoral trends has to be analyzed in detail, which we will do in the next class, and then we will come to the demand side trends. So for now I am concluding, but we will be continuing this chapter. This will be a series. We will do all the 10 chapters. So we will be analyzing all the 10 chapters in much detail, which will be very much helpful for your examination. So industrial sector and services sector, in the next class we will be doing that. Thank you so much for watching. Wishing you all the very best.